Yes, I give to the environment movement because I think it's very important that we're concerned about the air we breathe, the water we drink, and our life, you know, and on this planet.
Yes, I give to the environment movement. I think it's important for all of us to support a good cause like this.
Personally, I don't give financial support to the environment movement. I think the majority of funds should come from the government.
Yes, I do give to the environment movement because over the past 20 years, man's pollution has gotten out of control. And I feel it's about time we started giving back to try and clean it up.
On Close Up tonight, grim predictions about the future of the planet. According to Australian writer and rainforest activist John Seed, we may have only 10 to 15 years to change our ways before the ecological destruction of the Earth becomes irreversible. Our ecology specialist Bob Hunter spoke with the ecological radical leader during a visit here to Toronto.
What happens if you peel enough bark off of a tree? You don't get a tree without bark, you get a dead tree. What we're doing with our trees around the world, especially the rainforests, is literally peeling the bark away from the planet itself and killing it. The critical challenge in our time is to find a way to stop destroying the planet long enough for a wiser generation to come along and pick up the pieces. John Seed is a man who has devoted his life to fending off that destruction, at one point having himself buried up to his neck in the path of a bulldozer to save a forest in Australia.
This isn't a question of scenery. This isn't a question of wilderness experience for a few people. This is a matter of life and death. These forests are part of the life support systems. They're a vital organ on this living planet Earth. And that to destroy those forests is to destroy any future that we might have. At the moment, the big campaign is to stop the consumption of rainforest timbers, the mahogany, the teak, the rosewood, the ebony and the other timbers which are laying the rainforests of the world to waste. And huge quantities of these timbers end up in North America, many of them via Japan, and basically less than a single human lifetime remains before these rainforests are utterly annihilated, mainly for timber, also for beef. A lot of the Central American and South American rainforests have been cleared and even as we speak are being cleared for beef. This is the big problem in Brazil at the moment, where 120,000 square miles of the Amazon burnt last year, all of it deliberately lit fires fueled by subsidies for the cattle industry. In the United States, 90% of the corn, the maize and the oats that are grown are fed to cattle, and that the amount of water involved, the amount of energy involved is such that, for instance, half of all of the water used for any purpose in the United States is used to grow beef. You know, so that it's a tremendous drain on the aquifers, a tremendous drain on the rivers, huge amounts of power go into the fertilizers to grow these crops, and it seems as though perhaps the single most important thing a person in the United States could do to save the rainforests and also their domestic forests is to stop eating beef. I think that we're going to discover, looking back in a year or two, that this period now was really pivotal as far as a dramatic change in consciousness and a dramatic change in what people are prepared to accept as acceptable behaviour. They're not going to say, yes, you can save the planet, but only as long as you restrict yourself to hanging banners and you know, doing publicity stunts. It's time to start throwing tea overboard. It's time people started uprising and doing something about this, and I think everyone's really ready to hear this now. It's not as though we're going to disappear in 10 years, but 10 years from now, that downward spiral is going to be so accelerated that it's hard to see any technology that's going to be able to pull us out of it. So we're the last human generation that's going to be in a position to do anything about this.
Definitely alarming to hear less than a single lifetime before the destruction becomes irreversible. Another interesting point you told me earlier, you asked him, Mr. Seed, how he got involved in the environment movement. What did he tell you?
Well, actually, he'd read my book years ago about back when the whaling issue was happening, and also was very inspired by some of the stuff some of the activists were doing, trying to intercept radioactive waste being dumped into the ocean. So there's a kind of an interesting feedback loop.
Yeah, and his comment about it's time for a tea party, referring to the Boston Tea Party, and you told me earlier about some pretty radical things going on in the rainforest.
Well, the Earth First organization is well known in the United States, just starting to be so here. They're the people that advocate spiking trees, pouring sugar into the machinery to stop things. And in other words, they're saying we have 10 years to turn this around, and if we continue with business as usual and you all go ahead and do what you've been doing all along, we don't have a hope in hell. Now, one of the things they actually recommend, I don't know if it's a serious recommendation, but the idea that we would have a rite of passage for young men would be at the point where you killed your first bulldozer.
Interesting. Smacks of the 60s, doesn't it? That kind of radical...
Well,
but, you know,
in terms of the ecology issue, actually the 90s is shaping up as the big 60s. Like all that consciousness was there in the 60s, and it kind of petered out in this, or it got going in the 70s, but the 80s, as everybody knows, was the me decade of utter consumption.
We all know now we have to do something, and fast.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.